You're suspended. Right now. In front of everyone. Julian's voice cracked like thunder across the boardroom, his finger jabbing the air toward Leora, her chair scraping back in the stunned hush. 40 pairs of eyes locked on her, colleagues turned spectators, as Serena's red lips smirk bloomed from the shadows beside him. Leora's pulse hammered, heat flooding her skin, but she rose slow, deliberate, her fingers brushing the wedding band that suddenly burned. Suspended, she echoed, voice a silken blade, for loving you enough to question her calls at midnight. Gasps rippled, Julian's face twisted, triumph souring to something feral, as laughter erupted, jagged and unkind. But in her eyes, a storm gathered, unspoken empires flickering like hidden code. Have you ever uncovered the man you adore, the one whose hands once mapped your every curve in the dead of night? Was it never who he swore? When vows shatter under spotlights, and the bed you shared feels like borrowed ground, how do you reclaim the fire he dimmed? Tonight, one woman's quiet fury flips a billion-dollar throne overnight. But would you absolve a love that cloaked itself in deception, all for the sake of devotion? If betrayal's sting lingers in your heart, drop a heart below. Share the lie that cut deepest. Subscribers, you're my spark. New souls, hit subscribe to ignite with us. Let's unravel this romance before it consumes you. To understand the blaze that would one day consume Julian Voss, we must trace it back to its tender origin. A sun-drenched summit in Barcelona, where the Mediterranean breeze carried whispers of possibility. Leora had arrived as a force veiled in quiet brilliance, her laptop humming with lines of code that could predict market fluxes before they crested. She was 28 with eyes like gathering clouds and a laugh that uncoiled like warm honey. Julian, 32 and already a name in venture circles, spotted her during a panel on adaptive algorithms, her questions slicing through the moderator's platitudes with elegant precision. Afterward, in the throng of networking, he approached with a glass of Tempranillo in hand, his smile disarming, green eyes locking onto hers like a program seeking its perfect match. Your take on ethical overrides, he said, voice low and textured. It made me rethink my entire portfolio. Care to expand it over a drink? The rooftop's got a view that rivals your insight. She tilted her head, appraising him, the broad line of his shoulders under a linen shirt, the way his fingers brushed hers as he passed the glass. Desire flickered, subtle at first, a spark in the space between their words. They climbed to the terrace, the city sprawling below in a mosaic of terracotta roofs and shadowed alleys, the air thick with jasmine and the faint salt of the sea. Conversation flowed like the wine, from quantum ledgers to the poetry of flawed code, his hand grazing her arm as he leaned in, sharing a story of a startup he'd salvaged from collapse. You're not just building systems, he murmured, his breath warm against her temple. You're architecting futures. What drives a woman like you to hide such power behind questions? Leora's pulse quickened, the proximity of him, a subtle cologne of cedar and citrus, stirring something dormant. Power's only real if it's earned, not announced, she replied, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. Their eyes held, the world narrowing to the heat building between them, until he closed the distance, his lips capturing hers in a kiss that started soft, exploratory. A brush of mouths tasting of wine and want. But it deepened fast, her hand sliding up his chest, fisting the fabric as his tongue teased the seam of her lips, coaxing a sigh from her depths. They barely made it to his suite, the door slamming shut on the corridor's murmur. Julian pressed her against the wall, his mouth trailing fire down her neck, nipping at the pulse that fluttered there. God, Leora, he groaned, hands roaming her sides, thumbs circling the swell of her breast through silk. She arched into him, legs parting instinctively as he lifted her skirt, fingers finding the lace barrier and slipping beneath, stroking her slick folds with deliberate strokes that made her gasp. You're already so ready for me. Julian, she breathed, nails digging into his shoulders, guiding him to his knees. He obliged, eyes dark with hunger, as he hooked her thigh over his shoulder, his mouth descending, tongue flat and insistent against her core, lapping in slow, deliberate circles that built pressure like a gathering algorithm. She threaded fingers through his hair, hips rocking against the velvet heat of him, pleasure coiling tight until it snapped. Her cry echoing off the tiles as waves crashed through her, leaving her trembling, knees weak. He rose, shedding clothes with urgent grace, his arousal straining against her thigh as he lifted her, carrying her to the bed. There, under the gauzy canopy, he entered her in one fluid thrust, deep, filling, their bodies sinking in a rhythm of gasps and grips. She wrapped legs around him, meeting each plunge with a tilt of her hips, the friction igniting sparks that raced up her spine. More, she demanded, voice husky, and he gave it, pace quickening, hands slipping between them to circle her clit in time with his thrusts. Their release came together. Hers a shuddering bloom around him, his a hot rush that spilled deep, binding them in sweat-slicked afterglow. That night marked the beginning, a whirlwind of stolen weekends and whispered plans. 6 months later, in a Tuscany villa ringed by olive groves, they exchanged vows under a canopy of stars. The reception blurred into seclusion, Julian sweeping her into the master suite, the air heavy with the scent of wild herbs. "My wife," he growled, backing her against the four-poster, hands deftly unlacing her gown until it pooled at her feet. Naked before him, she felt exposed yet cherished, his gaze reverent as he traced every curve, fingers lingering on the dip of her waist, the peak of her breasts. He knelt again, this time with the slowness of promise, lips and tongue worshipping her anew, sucking gently at her folds, then firmer, 2 fingers curling inside to stroke that hidden ridge until she bucked, climax ripping through her like code compiling to perfection. Rising, he claimed her mouth in a kiss tasting of her essence, then guided her hand to his length, hard velvet over steel. She stroked him languidly, savoring his hiss, before pushing him onto the bed, straddling with bold intent. Lowering onto him inch by inch, she set the pace, slow grinds that circled her pleasure against his base, then faster, breasts swaying as he gripped her hips, thrusting up to meet her. Their union peaked in frenzy, her walls clenching as she shattered, drawing his release in pulsing waves that left them entwined, hearts thundering in unison, but embers cool. Back in the Bay Area, Apex Innovations demanded more. Julian's role as CEO swelling his days with boardroom battles. Leora's marketing position a deliberate camouflage for her true hand in the code. Mira's letter tucked in a velvet-lined box had been her compass. Guard your light, darling. Let it draw the worthy, not blind them with glare. The empire is yours when you know who cherishes the woman, not the crown. She'd hidden her stake, pouring genius into shadows. Algorithms that fortified Apex's quantum vaults. Ideas Julian polished and claimed in presentations. His applause hers in silence. At first, the theft felt like partnership. His success, a shared glow. Evenings ended in fevered reunions, him bursting through the door, lifting her onto the kitchen island, skirt hiked as he devoured her with mouth and hands, her cries muffled against his shoulder as she came undone. "You're my secret weapon," he'd murmur post-bliss, tracing lazy patterns on her thigh. Longing laced their touches then, her fingers mapping the scars on his knuckles from boyhood brawls, his lips confessing vulnerabilities over midnight wine. Yet cracks formed. Serena Vale slithered in as consultant, her consultations stretching into nights. Julian's return scented with her perfume. Lyora's questions met deflections, her body offered in bids for reconnection. Straddling him in the shower, water cascading as she rode him slow, seeking the old fire in his groans. But his eyes wandered, thrusts mechanical, fulfillment fleeting. Conflict brewed in stolen glances, her vulnerability a quiet ache. Did he see her or the empire she veiled? The gala 6 months ago tipped the scale. Serena's hand on his lower back, their laughter a private code, ignited Leora's plea. "No more midnight calls. We're a team." His response? The boardroom execution. Now, heels echoing down Apex's marble halls, Leora packed her office with mechanical calm, the locket from Barcelona tossed face down, her grandmother's pen clicking shut beside it. The wedding band joined the note on her desk. "You sought apology. Here's mine. From the veil I wore for you." She left without a backward glance, the elevator's descent a plunge into truth. Outside, the fog rolled in from the bay, mirroring the mist in her eyes. But beneath it, desire stirred. Not for Julian, but for the woman Mira had forged. Unapologetic, aflame. What secret have you buried in the name of love, only to watch it poison the well? Pause here, lovely listeners. Hit that like if this stirs your own hidden flames, and share in the comments. What's the one truth you'd risk everything to unearth? Your stories fuel ours. Onward into the dawn. Sunrise painted the Voss estate in gold, waves crashing against cliffs like applause for Lyora's resolve. She hadn't slept. Mara's letter unfurled on the duvet, words blurring through unshed tears. Power isn't domination, my fierce one. It's the quiet command that bends storms to your will. By 6 a.m., Elena Reyes and her team mobilized, a cadre of legal eagles wedded for the kill. Lyora watched from the terrace, coffee steaming in her grip, as they sped toward Apex's tower, her tower. Cloak no longer. Julian arrived at 8:40, tie askew from a night tangled in Serena's sheets, her nails marks still fresh on his back. Victory's aftertaste soured as his assistant paled at the door. Sir, attorneys, from the Voss Trust. Urgent. He waved her off, striding in with CEO swagger, only to freeze at the trio in sharkskin suits flanking his desk. Elena extended a manicured hand, her grip iron. Mr. Voss, Elena Reyes, Voss Legacy Trust. We're invoking Article 17, full governance audit, effective immediately. Julian's laugh barked out, forced. Legacy Trust? That's Lyora's family relic. Some fintech ghost from her grandma's era. I'm CEO. Call her bluff. Elena's smile was a scalpel. She fanned documents across his blotter. Share ledgers, Mira's will, Lyora's name in bold, trustee ink. Ghost? The trust owns 72%. Voting control since Mira coded the first payment note in '89. You've been president? Yes. But owner? That's Lyora, your wife. His knees buckled into the chair, mind reeling to Tuscany's villa, the bed still warm from their wedding rapture. Lyora astride him, gown discarded, her rhythm a symphony of control, hips circling with deliberate torque, drawing him deeper until friction sparked ecstasy. Forever, she'd vowed then, her release a velvet vice around him, his seed claiming her in shuddering unity. Forever, he'd echoed, blind to the throne beneath her skin. She's in marketing, he muttered, voice fraying. Junior role. This is insane. Junior by choice, the junior partner Marcus Hale interjected, voice smooth as oiled code. To earn stripes on merit, but post-Mira, she's sole steward. In last night's filings, divorce petition, timestamped 11:47 p.m. Prenup activates her full authority. The calendar chimed. Board emergency, 10 a.m., 9:20 now. Elena slid an envelope across. Keys to the Pacific Heights penthouse, the Maserati fob, a scrawled coda in Lyora's hand. Yours was always borrowed light. Speak through counsel now. Julian's fingers trembled, the metal cold as betrayal's bite. The boardroom thrummed with unease. 12 faces, old guards and new blood, arrayed like jurors. Elena manned the projector, lineage blooming on screen. Mara's garage hacks birthing apex. Lyora's infusions spiking growth from 4% crawl to 22% sprint. Pre-Lyora, plateau, she narrated. Post, her quantum encryptions securing billion-dollar flows. Julian's protest died as emails ghosted up, his Zurich pitch, verbatim from Lyora's draft. Tokyo expansion, her blueprint in his font. 73 lifts, Elena tallied, plus asset trails, penthouse deed to the trust, your club dues from her discretionary, even Ms. Vale's lease, paid from marital accounts you accessed. Outrage swelled, Theodore Lang, grizzled founder ally, slamming a fist. You funded your side piece with her legacy? The door whispered open. Lyora glided in, emerald sheath hugging her form like a lover's promise, heels a staccato heartbeat. She claimed the head chair, scent of jasmine cutting the recycled air, her gaze sweeping the table, lingering on Julian with a mix of sorrow and steel. Vulnerability flashed, the slight quiver of her lip, echo of nights she'd bared her soul mid-thrust, body yielding as he whispered devotions. Apologies for the delay, she said, voice a caress laced with command. I wanted facts first, untainted by presence. Lyora, Julian rasped, rising half from his seat, this is lunacy. We talk, alone. Like Zurich after the deal, when I screamed your name against the storm, she cut in, tone velvet over thorns, drawing sharp intakes. Yes, Julian, when you took my net design that morning and called it vision. Public theft now demands public reckoning. The room crackled. She turned to Theodore. Proposal, suspend Julian pending audit, review ethics, contributions, resource use. You can't, he lunged, chair toppling. Contract, rights. Clauses for fiduciary breach, she countered, eyes locking his. the air thick with their shared history's ghost. Stealing from your spouse, the majority holder? That's not partnership. That's plunder. Vivian Voss burst then, pearls clacking, security in tow. Leora, dear, this farce ends. Julian elevated you from obscurity. Leora's laugh was soft, devastating. Obscurity? Mira built Apex from ether. I was her heir, playing small to test if he'd love the code. Not the cachet. He failed. The vote cascaded, 9 raised hands, swift as falling dominoes. Suspended, Leora intoned. Access revoked. Escort him. Security closed in, badge plucked like a fallen leaf. Vivian wailed, but Leora rose, materials gathered, her exit a queen's procession. In the hall, Margaret paused, eyes soft. She brewed the office coffee at dawn, you know. Never boasted. We thought you graced her with a bomb. Turns out, grace flowed the other way. Julian's reflection in the glass warped, king to beggar in hours. His phone lit. Serena celebrate? But the fire she'd kindled last night, her aggressive ride, slick and demanding, paled against Leora's memory. Bodies fused in Tuscany's heat. Fulfillment, a shared blaze. As Leora drove home, wind whipping her hair, longing twisted with liberation. The man who'd once made her feel infinite now exposed the finite in him. Yet in the rear view, her eyes gleamed, ready to code a new dawn. Julian's hotel suite reeked of stale triumph. Sheets twisted from Serena's departure at dawn. Harlan Locke, his silver-haired fixer, spread prenup pages like a dealer's hand. Clause 9B, Harlan tapped. Marital assets freeze on dissolution trigger. Not total shutdown, payroll streams, vendor lines. Leverage to negotiate. Julian's eyes bloodshot, fixed on the text. She'll fold, force her to the table. Harlan's nod was cautious. Ugly optics, but yes, complicates her moves. By noon, injunctions locked. 450 paychecks iced. Apex's pulse stuttering. Media feasted. Julian's sit-downs earnest, wounded. A scorned partner's vendetta endangers families. I built this, she tears it down. Threads lit with sympathy. Real men grind, she buys thrones. Serena arrived that evening, laced Teddy a siren's call, her body a balm for his fractures. Poor lamb, she cooed, pushing him to the chaise, straddling with predatory poise. Her hands roamed his chest, nails scraping as she ground against his stirring length, lips claiming his in a bite that drew blood. Let me erase her. He yielded, flipping her beneath, skirt rucked up as he freed himself, plunging into her welcoming heat. Wet, clenching, her legs locking ankles at his back. Thrusts came hard, punishing, the slap of skin a counterpoint to his growl. Mine now. She arched, moaning theatrics, fingers twisting sheets as she peeked, tight spasms milking him toward release. He spilled with a guttural curse, collapsing into her embrace, but the high ebbed to void. Her touch, once illicit thrill, now echoed hollow. Friction sans the soul sink Leora had woven, where every stroke whispered eternity. Across the bay, Leora's estate glowed against twilight, her body a taut wire of unrest. The freeze's ripple hit, emails from panicked staff, vendors circling like sharks. She paced the library, Mira's letter a talisman, grief coiling low in her belly. Desire unbidden surfaced, not for Julian's ghost, but release from the cage of longing. In the shower's steam, water sheeting her skin, she leaned against tile, hand trailing down, fingers parting folds still tender from memory. She pictured not betrayal, but Barcelona's rooftop, Julian's tongue's devotion, the way he'd coaxed her open, lapping with fervor until she flooded him. Her touch mimicked, circling clit with building pressure. 2 fingers thrusting in rhythm with imagined hips. Breath hitched, pleasure mounting like code compiling, vulnerable, raw, until orgasm crested, a keening sob escaping as thighs quaked, water rinsing tears of catharsis. Kira arrived unannounced, bottle of Cabernet in hand, her presence a lifeline since Stanford dorms. Talk, she commanded, settling on the rug by the fire, flames dancing shadows across her face. Leora curled beside her, vulnerability spilling. I ache for the boy who saw me whole, before the empire blinded him. His hands? They knew me once. Kira's arm encircled, thumb stroking her shoulder in soothing arcs. Grieve the ghost, love, not the thief. Silence stretched, charged, until Kira's gaze softened, lips brushing Lyora's temple, a comfort that bloomed warmer. Let me remind you of your own fire. Their kiss ignited, slow, exploratory, mouths parting in tentative hunger, tongues tangling with the sweetness of shared secrets. Clothes yielded, Kira's blouse unbuttoned to reveal soft curves, Lyora's hands cupping breasts, thumbs teasing nipples to stiff peaks. Kira gasped, guiding Lyora's mouth downward, suckling with gentle pulls that drew moans from both. Lower still, Kira parted Lyora's thighs, fingers tracing entrance before delving, slow curls against inner walls, thumb on clit in syncopated bliss. Lyora bucked, hand fisting Kira's hair, pleasure unfurling like dawn. Vulnerable waves building to crest, her cry muffled against Kira's neck as release shuddered through. Fulfillment in this tender mirror of self. Entwined after, breaths mingling, Lyora whispered, "Healing tastes like you." Not erasure, but reclamation. A bridge from loss to liberty. Dawn brought Perry. Lyora wired personal funds for payroll. Her memo a clarion. No soul starves for one man's spite. Apex endures. Leaks followed. O animal. Memos juxtaposed, her genius in his gloss. Headlines pivoting. The coded queen, how she scripted, silence now symphony. Board defectors phoned Julian. Theodore's tone glacial. Paychecks as pawns. You've torched bridges, son. Harlan conceded retreat. Counters filed. Optics yours, poison. Julian's plea call pierced Lyora's line at dusk. Audit, he begged, voice cracking. Truth for truce. We were more than this. Her paws hummed with their history. Santorini's cliff. Stars witness to her rocking atop him. Slow grinds chasing stars within. Truth, Julian, but no truce for thieves. She hung, resolve hardening like forged steel. Conflict crested, his empire's freeze thawed to flood her ascent, vulnerability yielding to the thrill of command. Yet longing lingered, a ember waiting for wind. Desperation's edge sharpened Julian's gaze as he prepped the nexus pitch. Serena's fingers drumming his thigh in the cab. T's electric, her foot arching against his calf. This neural prosthesis, Lyora's baby, repackaged as yours. Theo Langford pays premium for edges. Nexus's lair gleamed chrome, holoscreens pulsing data veins. Theo, Mira's garage comrade, greeted with boardroom bonhomie, recorder discreet on the oak slab. Julian unreeled the deck. Client webs, Vaughn exploits, all Lyora's weave, his spin. Proprietary, he boasted, voice steady as Serena interjected, her touch under table a spark to his focus. 90 minutes, handshakes. Theo's will circle back. Elation surged in the elevator, Serena's kiss, fierce, promising reward. But instinct gnawed, a glitch in the matrix. Theo's forward to Elena that eve, full audio, timestamps damning. Lyora received it in the library, waves thundering beyond glass like her pulse. Julian's timbre, bravado laced with greed, twisted the knife, Serena's purr the grindstone. Grief surged, hot and visceral. The man who'd once bent her over Zurich desks, thrusting through rain-lashed nights, her moans thunder's chorus as he filled her. Bodies a storm of union. She played it twice, each word a lash, then called Kira. He's auctioning my soul again. Vulnerability cracked wide, tears tracing throats hollow. Kira arrived, arms enveloping. Breathe into it, darling. Let rage fuel, not fell. Their solace deepened, lips meeting in solace's fire, hands rediscovering pace. Kira's mouth on Lyora's neck, sucking marks of affirmation. Fingers parting, stroking with intimate knowledge, building to shared precipice. Lyora's hand mirrored, delving Kira's warmth, their rhythms entwined. Gasps harmonizing until climaxes cascaded, dual blooms of release, leaving them languid, fulfilled in this sisterly blaze. Audit dropped Tuesday. Data a guillotine. Pre-Lyora stagnation. Post her surges. Facilitator, it labeled Julian. Polite vivisection. His call came frantic. Flawed metrics. I built relationships. You facilitated mine, Lyora countered, voice a silken snare. Borrowed brilliance. Called it bond. Santorini. Under stars, you entered me like discovery. Our peaks a vow, but vows fracture on forgeries. Silence waited. I loved you, he choked. The gifts you gleaned, she softened, then steeled. Not the giver. His non-apology statement landed limp. Context omitted. But the pitch tape loomed, his tell-all brewing with his scribe, painting her manipulator, him martyr. Rebecca's edge cut through. Release it, he's chosen war. Leora weighed Mira's echo. Mercy for the climbable rope, justice for the noose. Audit first, grace if he yields. He didn't, the interview teased. Jealous heiress torches husband's spark. Leora greenlit the drop. Audio viral by Vespers. Julian sell a self-slay. Espionage? Headlines bayed. Feds knocked pre-dawn. Questions pointed as bayonets. Serena bolted. Text curt. Sunk costs. Julian alone. Evictions looming. Therapies glare. Entitlements your virus. Stealing light to mask dark. Flash to Tokyo. Her bound in his silk ties. Body a canvas for his tongue's trails. Entering slow then savage. Her surrender absolute. They crested in cries. Her trust then. Now ash. Twists mercy. Leora withheld arrest, opting suits that stripped a degrees. His thesis, pilfered prose. Fulfillment dawned in her refusal to descend. Vulnerance transmuted to victory's glow. What flame have you fanned from betrayal's coals? Midway through this inferno, darlings, smash like if desire's dance grips you, comment your hottest hidden want. Your heat keeps the narrative burning. Julian's nadir unfolded in a cramped studio, rent scraped from odd gigs, consults for flailing apps. His name a scarlet brand. Resumes vanished into voids, interviews grilled like inquisitions. Strategic wins at Apex? One probed. Traps sprung, boast and audits damned. Confess, and why hire mediocrity? Therapy peeled layers. Dr. Ellis, bespectacled sage, prodded. Why claim her genius? Fear of your own shadow. Ordinariness terrified, Julian admitted, voice raw. Easier to wear her crown. Rebuild whispered small. Ethics seminars at community hubs. Apologies emailed to defectors. Timothy's reply curt grace. Accepted. Forge honest paths. Vivian's visits chilled, her aid conditional. Your father's inquiring. Similar fall, he claims redemption. Their diner meet yielded gravel truth. Own the fracture, boy. Build small, true. Julian pivoted. Weekends tutoring code to underserved youth. Socials purged. Temptations severed. Leora's feed? Deleted. Her triumphs no longer his mirror. Solace crept in fragments. A student's aha. Therapy's incremental unburdening. Vulnerability's gift. Honesty as quiet anchor. Across the divide, Leora's ascent crested at Napa's gala. Vineyards aglow under lanterns. Air ripe with earth and anticipation. The ballroom pulsed with seers. Coders she'd seated, execs mentored. Her emerald gown a nod to Mira's legacy. Speech delivered. From erasure to empire, may we all code unapologetic. Post-rostrum, Ronan Hale approached. Venture artisan, quartz eyes, and maker-scarred hands. His presence a steady hum. Your words on authentic arcs? They reframed my labs. Coffee after? Discuss properties, poetry, and collabs. Their terrace talk wove deep. Ethics in entanglement, touches invisible scripts. Desires like debug, he rumbled, fingers brushing hers. Finds the knot, unties with care. Cottage-bound, fire crackling. He undressed her reverent, palms cupping breasts, mouth latching to peaks with sucks that arched her bow. Revelation, he breathed, lowering to thighs, tongue delving folds in languid laps, fingers joining to curl and coax until she quaked. Release a torrent soaking his chin. Rising, clothes shed to reveal inked sinew, she drew him near, hand guiding his girth, sinking slow, their sighs a duet as he stretched her full. Pace built, her nails on his flanks, his snaps deep and deliberate, hand between to thumb her swell. Crest unified, her flutter dragging his pulse, hot flood within, bodies locked in aftershock's embrace. You're the loop I crave endless, he murmured, tracing her jaw. Weekends deepened, silk bonds playful, her commands met with his yielding thrusts. Dawn hikes yielding to grass-swept unions, fulfillment in every gasp. Ronan's gaze held her whole, power alluring, not eclipsed. Apex flourished, ethics modules open-sourced, funds blooming overlooked blooms. Julian's code drive arrived anonymous, her gift, truth build. He coded small tools, honest sparks. Vulnerabilities arc closed. From longing's void to this, Lyora seen, Julian, unmasked. In the tower's pinnacle, city lights a constellation of reclaimed stars. Lyora stood with Ronan's palm warm at her nape, his kiss a sill on futures unwritten. The boardroom's specters had dissolved. In their stead, a realm forged in exposure's forge. Love not as veil, but vista. Morals etched clear. Devotion thrives on revelation, not robbery. Empires endure when roots entwine truth, not theft. Betrayal's blade carves space for stronger blooms. Vulnerability the soil, fulfillment the harvest. Lyora's journey mirrors ours. Desires spark in stolen glances. Longings ache in fading touches. Conflicts forge in public flames. Vulnerabilities bloom in solitary sighs. And oh, the ecstasy of fulfillment. Bodies and souls aligning in honest fire. May we all code such arcs. Fierce, felt, forever. Darlings, if this romance's rhythm stirred your depths, that pulse of passion reclaimed, or in crush like to fan the flames for more, share it among who needs this reminder that love bows to no shadows. In comments, bear a peace. What's your vow to unhide your light? Your truths weave our next tales. Subscribers, you're the code that compiles my dreams. Thank you for every heartbeat shared. New flames, subscribe now. Weekly whispers of desire await, turning heartaches to hearth rises. Tease for next. A forbidden glance at a masked ball ignites a dynasty's fall. But can ecstasy mend the mask? Fade to waves hush, Mira's letter on the stand. Extraordinary you, unapologized. Sleep claims her, windows wide to dawn's promise. Empire's hers, love luminous, life a script of seductive strength. Until next, hold your fire close. Good night, my beloveds.